It all came to pass. The King of England had an heir. The 14th baby was destined to ascend the throne. But a silver warming pan thwarted those plans. Sometimes, such a trivial item can become a barrier to great ambitions. In the Anglican kingdom, a Catholic king was like a white crow. Yet, it was James II who found himself on the throne, even though it wasn't a position he particularly desired. His predecessor, Charles II, had a well-known fondness for women, which naturally resulted in a multitude of illegitimate offspring. However, he struggled to produce a legitimate heir with his wife. So, after Charles's death, his lineage could not lay claim to the crown. The throne was taken by James. He was already of advanced age and had been married twice. Of the 8 children from his first wife, only 2 daughters, Mary and Anne, survived. His second wife also blessed him with daughters, but it was the longed-for son who finally arrived. In England, girls could inherit the crown, and there were already several precedents. But in the 17th century, when a son was born, princesses were pushed aside from the throne, making way for their brother. Thus, little James Francis Edward was viewed as the future king. However, the English were not quick to throw their hats in the air. Over the course of more than 100 years, Anglicanism had solidified its hold, and Catholics were not favored. Memories of Mary Tudor, who ruthlessly dealt with non-believers, were still fresh. Would they really go down that road again? Everyone knew that both James and his wife were staunch in their beliefs. Therefore, their son would be raised accordingly. In contrast to the infant, the 2 elder princesses, Mary and Anne, were staunch Anglicans. Both were in their 20s, ready-made queens. But how could they circumvent the law? That's when the rumor emerged. There was no son at all. A healthy boy born to a king in his 50s? Don't be ridiculous. All his offspring were weak and unviable. So who was soiling the royal diapers? It was just a substitute, a fake. The child had been brought to the queen in a silver warming pan. Myths are often more appealing than the truth, especially when people want to believe them. The story of the warming pan was quickly accepted. Although it was an obvious absurdity, Queen Mary of Modena was never left alone for a moment, as was customary for women in her condition. Dozens of witnesses were present for the birth of the prince. It would have been impossible to pull off a switch. The truth would have come to light immediately. On top of that, there was the warming pan. These were used to make sheets warmer or to dry them out. The pans resembled small frying pans filled with hot coals. How could anyone hide something in there? It seemed impossible. Yet, just a week later, rumors were swirling in the streets. It's true, there was a switch. James just wants to put a Catholic son on the throne. Within a few weeks, the opposing nobles had formed a conspiracy. They reached out to Prince William of Orange with a proposal to overthrow the King of England and take the throne for himself. After all, the prince was married to James's eldest daughter, Mary. The opportunities for him were immense. He began preparing for an invasion. Soon, William of Orange set foot on English soil, receiving enthusiastic support from Princess Anne. Meanwhile, James II cowardly fled with his family to France. The joy over the infant heir was short-lived. A few months later, the English applauded the coronation of William and Mary. Although many European states later recognized the rights of James's son to the throne after James's death, he never ruled for even a single day. James Francis Edward fought for his rights his entire life. At one point, he even managed to be crowned in Scotland. Unfortunately, that victory was followed by defeat and another flight. In the first half of the 18th century, the true and legitimate King of England married Maria Clementina Sobieska and settled in Rome. The Pope gifted the newlyweds a palace and provided them with an income. In Rome, the couple had 2 sons who could continue the dynasty. But in England, no one wanted to hear about it. Neither Queen Mary nor her successor had a living heir. The unfortunate infant, Prince James, made one last attempt to reclaim the crown, but that effort also failed. He lived out his days in Rome and ultimately passed away there.